There we go. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Just some last minute technical stuff, which everybody loves. Welcome to, what are we? This is the leadership and business skills for managers live stream. Thank you for being here. The topic today is the MBA dead or the best investment you'll ever make? That's what we're going to be talking about today. This is the weekly live stream I do where we talk about business topics outside of entrepreneurship, outside of job search, just general business topics, more strategic stuff I'm kind of more interested in. Hopefully you are too. And this is episode 20. So we have done 20 of these now. So I guess that's a milestone, right? This is also an interactive live stream. So if you're seeing my beautiful face, you should see a chat box somewhere in the vicinity of my face. If you have been a subscriber to my channel for any amount of time, you should be able to get in there and ask questions. That's what this is all about. So I'll be able to see those and respond and help you out the best that I can. As always, a special shout out goes out to my YouTube channel members. Membership has its privileges. You guys are awesome. As with my Patreons and my super thanks donors, those are cool too. And to you, my viewers and participants, thank you for being here. I have to say, you're looking particularly fine today. Looking good. It's the Friday, it's the weekend's coming up, so that's great. Okay, yeah, without any further ado, I think let's jump right in. So I talk about this a lot on my channel. I have an MBA for what that's worth. A lot of other people do too. And having been on LinkedIn for many years, I observe the debates on LinkedIn. You know, people post stuff and, you know, sometimes it's actual people posting the stuff that you know that's in your network, you know, which is cool. Or more lately these days, it seems social media is being taken over by corporate posts that are done by people not in your network or even companies that are just posting crap. And so you can't help but notice this stuff when you log on. And on LinkedIn, they never tire of talking about this topic here about MBAs. Do you need one? Is it worth anything? You know, have things changed and now you don't need school or you don't need an MBA? You could, you know, just go ahead and do all this stuff yourself. Is it all a big conspiracy, a big con? Like, you know, everyone and their brother loves to chime in on this, including a lot of people that really don't know anything about what they're talking about because they don't have an MBA. So it's an interesting topic. I know there's a lot of people out there, especially young people, that are thinking of maybe going to school for this, and you're wondering whether it's the thing to do, whether it makes sense. That's what we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about that debate. You know, so and also at any point, if you have any questions about anything related to this, about MBAs or about school or about anything, let me know and we can certainly get into it. Okay, so where to start? In the absence of any questions kicking us off, first of all, there's 8 people here. Thank you for being here. Let's start by just very briefly defining what the hell an MBA actually is. It stands for Masters of Business Administration. Okay, so it's a master's degree at a university, and it's in business. So for those that are not familiar, most people I'm sure know this, but if you don't know this, in university traditionally you had 3 levels of degrees. You had the bachelor level, which was kind of like you're now competent in that area, whatever area you take, whether it's science or arts or architecture or engineering or medicine, you know, whatever it is, you have the bachelor level, which means you're at least competent in it. Then you have the master's level, which in theory makes you a master, okay? And then if you want to go on from there, you have the PhD level, and that's where you're pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. You're discovering new things. So the people that discover new things and you know, get us to learn new things about everything, that's at the PhD level. In order to get a PhD, you have to have done a PhD thesis where you essentially discover something new that no one has known before, right? That's kind of how that works. So anyway, so what we're talking about is in fact in the business program, okay, business school, you can get a bachelor's of business, a master's of business, and a PhD in business, a doctor of business. And the master's degree is called the MBA, the Master's of Business Administration. So that's what we're talking about, just for those who don't know that. And in that program, basically, you study many different areas of business. You're going to be studying accounting. You're going to be looking at finance. You're going to be looking at marketing, economics, operations, HR, organizational theory. And then it branches out into other things that you could do. It varies. Things like entrepreneurship, things like change management, things like information systems. It goes on and on and on. There's like different subsets of things you can do. So you have, like any program, you have the core curriculum, and then you have a lot of electives and things that could be in there. And then on top of that, you can specialize, right? So you sometimes see people who have an MBA specializing in a certain area, like entrepreneurship or accounting or marketing or whatever. So that's what it is. Okay. So the big question is this necessary if you want to get ahead, if you want to succeed in business, if you want to be an authority on how to make money? Because the counter argument is that, and it doesn't just apply to business, this applies to a lot of other things too. The counter argument is that on one hand, you could sit in school learning it in a class. On the other hand, you could be out in the real world doing it, eat, sleeping, and breathing it. And the question is, does that prepare you more? Does that help you to learn more about it than just sitting in class? And some people argue, yes, it does. I'll be upfront with everyone. I'll tell you my opinion right off the hop. My personal opinion is that it's both. There's something to be said for both. Taking the theory does give you something that you will not get from doing it yourself. And in the case of business, starting a business or working in a business will give you things that you will not get from sitting in class. It's just that simple. They both give you unique aspects of what business is and how you can do it successfully, right? So full disclosure, that's kind of where my personal opinion is. I do recognize the two sides of the argument, and if you have a strong opinion about this based on maybe personal experience, whichever way, whichever side of this issue you're on, I'm going to encourage you to get into the chat and let us know what that is. If you have any experiences or you have any beliefs or opinions on it, that's valid. Now, there's many different things in this topic. Like, we could talk about the schools, we could talk about the price. Now, business, just for people who don't know, business is the scientific study of how to make money. That's essentially what it is. Okay, so if you want to learn how to make money or how to manage money, anything associated with money, you study business. That's what it is. And there's many different subjects within that umbrella of business, but that's what business is. Some people are interested in entrepreneurship, the idea that you're going to start a business, work for yourself, you're going to create value, you're going to sell it, you're going to build something up, and you're going to achieve financial success on a personal level and on a business level. A lot of people, that's their goal. Other people, that's not their goal. Their goal is to get a good job. They want a white-collar job that pays a lot, and so that's their entire reasoning behind learning business. They figure, okay, if I get a degree, an MBA in particular, that will be my key to getting hired in a certain role that pays a lot of money. So that's where some people are coming from. Other people, they want to be in charge. It's not so much the money, the financial compensation that that's motivating them. It's the idea that they want to be in charge. They want to be responsible. They want to control a lot of things, whether that's people, whether that's assets, whether that's various other things you could do. You could manage people, you could manage money, you could manage projects, you could manage assets. There's many different things you could manage, you could be in charge of, right? And you're a decision maker that decides what's to be done with that thing. So the point I'm trying to make is that there's many people coming into this issue that have differing goals, right? They're not always looking for the same thing. Then they have different opinions on what's the best way to get there, right? So that's what makes this this concept rather nebulous and slippery, because people are coming at it from different angles. Now, there's a popular myth that I've heard a lot, and that is that in the past, an MBA guaranteed you a job. It was pretty much the ticket into business. And that now that's not the case. Now you don't have to go to school to learn it. You can just, I don't know, do whatever. Just get a job or start a business or learn it yourself. And that will be the equivalent of it. That is a myth. The myth that is now the case and wasn't the case in the past, that's completely false. That's revisionist history. Since the beginning of the formal study of business in universities, which started, as far as I know, about 500 years ago when it really took off, people have been successful in both paths. They've gone to school, they've gotten their degree, and then they've been successful in their careers, and they've been successful in managing things. Side by side, people have always not done that. They haven't gone to school, but they've just organically started up businesses, and worked in businesses, and also have found success both in their careers and in terms of managing something, being in charge, right? This isn't a new development. That's been happening for a very, very long time. The only thing that's really changed recently, basically that I know of, is the technology. Now there's new and exciting options available for you to learn things without having to go to school, right? So that's really the only change. Welcome to Chronex Dev, if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. It says hello again. Hello again to Chronex Dev. And also to Richard says, hello, very interesting. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today. And if you have any opinions or questions or anything like that, I encourage you to get in the chat. This is an interactive live stream. That's the point of me doing this live. Not because I'm so amazing at talking extemporaneously, which I'm clearly not, but it's to interact with you guys. So if you have questions or any of that, get in the chat. Let's have a discussion rather than me monologuing at everybody. I much prefer a discussion. So we've covered what an MBA is, what business is. We've covered why people might want to learn business either through school or by doing, right? Firsthand experience. The other part to this, and this is more of my opinion based on my experiences. I have seen this echoed by other people too, by the way, but this is basically coming from me, is that when it revolves around hiring, okay, like that's a part of this discussion is about hiring. Do you hire somebody because they have an MBA, or do you hire them because they have equivalent experience? I hate that. Equivalent experience. There is no equivalent experience of taking certain degrees. You know what I mean? Like, what's the equivalent of experience of getting a medical degree? There's nothing equivalent because you can't practice medicine without it, right? Anyway, so the question often arises, should you hire somebody that has a lot of practical hands-on business experience, but no degree? Or should you hire someone who has less experience, but they have a degree, right? Like they have an MBA. And here's what the difference is, okay? when you learn something by experience, you're seeing what's in front of your face. And often the way this works out is that you're imitating what you see. So for example, a classic example is when you've just been hired for a company and you're being trained on the job. So usually that takes the form of somebody showing you, here's what we do and here's how you do it. You follow them around, you watch what they do, and then you're expected to then do that thing. Okay, so you observe them doing it, you learn what to do, and then you start doing it yourself. Okay, so you observe it in front of you, and now you know it, right? Now, I'm not knocking it. There's usually a lot of benefits to this. Okay, a lot of things you learn by doing. It's just that simple. However, the problem with that is that you only know what you've seen. Okay, so if you don't know the theory behind why we do it specifically this way, as opposed to what other ways could it be done, as opposed to why we decided not to do it any of those other ways and instead do it this way, you might not know any of that. All you know is we do it this way, and I now know how to do it that way, right? Now, where this is relevant is, let's pretend that you take that job, you learn what your predecessor does by following them around, they train you, you start doing it, okay? And your predecessor then leaves. You then fast forward a couple of years, and you find that, okay, this thing that we've always done, suddenly, it doesn't work anymore. We've always done business that way, but now we find that it's not a winning strategy. It's now failing. That's usually because the world has changed, even if we haven't. The world has changed around us. Now there's new technology. Now there's new competitors. Now there's new rules like laws or whatever. Now there's changes in what customers want, you know? So the old way of doing this, the traditional way, now is no longer effective. If we keep doing it that way, all that happens is we keep losing money. So we've got to change what we do to something new. It's at that point that the experience lets you down. Because if you only learned what you do by experience, you've only seen one way of doing it, you don't know any of the others, and you don't know why the others may or may not be good options, right? Whereas somebody who, in theory, they went to school, they know the theory, they were taught systematically, here's all the different ways you could do it, here's why you would choose different ways, like pros and cons of each, when you would employ different methods. They may not be that skilled at applying any of these methods because they haven't actually done it, but at least they're aware of them. They know the principle behind it. They know why you would select that method of doing it in a certain situation. Okay? Now, maybe I'm idealizing this a little bit, but that's the idea that's the difference between theory and experience in terms of how it trains you. Okay? If nothing changes, experience is king. If it's a changing environment, theory is what will guide you to the right path and make you successful. So that's kind of another aspect of this that enters the discussion. Dwight is here. Dwight says, by the way, I want to ask, sir, do you replay this live? Yeah, well, if you go to my YouTube channel, like my actual channel homepage, you can see that all the live streams are there. They're under the live tab. So every live stream I do, it's always available. You can watch it retroactively after the fact. So they're all there. So go to my YouTube channel and go to the live tab. And just to break this up, I will show you what it looks like. Let's see if I can pull this off. Being the technological god that I am, and everyone knows it. Let's see. So here, this is so if you go to the company's expert, like my actual, you click on the icon, right? It takes you here. Okay. So you got different tabs over here. Go to the live tab. Right? So here's all my live streams. So they're all available for your viewing pleasure. Evenings, weekends, sort of if you want to get the whole family together, all watch it together for several hours. It's all good. It's a Saturday night, So there you go. They are available, and this one will be available after the fact also. Okay, so so we're talking about MBA. So the question then becomes, if you want to get into business, either to have a good job or to start your own, or just to work in any capacity in it, should you take an MBA? Now, what I want to say to everyone is that I think that the knowledge, whether to get the knowledge or not, is a no-brainer. In business, you study how to make money. It's the scientific study of how to make money. I think everybody would probably agree that would be good to know. If you want to manage your own money, it's a good thing to know. If you want to make money and be smart about handling money, it's a good thing to know. If you want to be in business and make money directly without using an employer that you have to go through as an agent, you just want to make money directly without a job, it's a no-brainer. If you want to start up a side hustle and start working for yourself, maybe that grows and it's successful and it becomes your full-time vocation. Knowing business, very important. It will really help you. You don't have to discover the first principles by yourself by making mistakes. You read it, you get endless shortcuts into what will work and what won't. So you know that. In an ideal situation, you know exactly what to do. First shot out of the box until you are making money. So I think everybody would probably agree that learning how to make money is a good thing. So the question is not whether the knowledge is worth having or it's beneficial in some way. I consider that a moot point. I don't know if anyone else will give me an argument on that. I mean, listen, there's a chat. If you have some feedback there, let me know. But to me, that seems like it's a no-brainer. So the only question then becomes, what lengths do you have to go to learn the knowledge? Is it worth taking 2 years off your working life and going back to school? That's a big question right there. For some people, it might be. For some people, it really won't. They can't afford to do that. They might have like a large family to support, or they don't have the luxury of being able to do that financially. So like then it gets to be a real relevant question. It's not so simple. And then on top of it, it's not about simply the time. There's a cost associated with this stuff, directly and indirectly. So directly, you got to pay for tuition, you got to pay for books, you got to pay for your cost of living. If you're going back to school for 2 years, what are you going to eat? Where are you going to stay? Those are real expenses, right? There's a real cost associated with this. So the question is, at what point does it become not worth it, right? So we could talk about that. You can talk about if you want to go to school for it, like if you want to go to traditional university, what options do you have? Now you have everything from the local community college. You have even, there's training options like where you could get courses online. I sell one of them, right? But there's many options for like learning business and stuff online. You've got community colleges, you've got universities in your hometown. That's one option. And then you've got like really fancy alternatives. You have some of the top business schools in your country or in the world, and they will have an online component. So you don't have to physically go there. You could, attend sort of virtual school, right? You could enroll in their program, get an accredited MBA, and then you go to sort of night classes virtually, or night classes in person, right? There are remote programs, and you could do it by correspondence. And then there are, other options like executive MBA programs where instead of being 2 years, they try and condense it into 1 year, but it's more intense, right? And it's usually on weekends and stuff like that to work around people's jobs, right? So there's all kinds of options out there. The big question becomes like, what's the value of these? Is it worth doing? Well, to get into that, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis. You have to look at, okay, here's the amount of money that I predict it's going to cost. Okay, so that's not too hard to calculate. What are your tuition? What are your books? And then what if you're doing this full time? It's the cost of sustaining yourself while you're at school. It's essentially the opportunity cost, which means the cost of not doing what you could have done, which was maybe work for those 2 years. You could have been making money working at a job for 2 years, but instead you're going back to school. So not only do you have to pay for the tuition, but you're having to give up the income you would have made during those 2 years while you were working. So you got to take that into account. So you can figure out a total cost of this, right? That's on one side of this. On the other is the benefit. Now, what are you expecting this schooling to do for you? If you do get an MBA, an accredited MBA, what are you going to do with it? Now, some people would say, okay, well, I'm going to try and use it to get a job. I'm going to add that to what I already have. I have some other education. I have some work experience, and I'm going to try and use it to get a better job. Okay, fair enough. Now, what job is that, and how much is it going to pay? See if you can get some data on that. That's a whole other topic, and we could get into that later if people want. But for example, if you were expecting to make this much without this degree, but you figure with the degree, I'll be able to make this much. Okay, so there's a premium there that now I'm making because I've got an MBA. What is that amount? And how long is it going to last? Now, once you have a degree, usually that means that you jump to a better job, or you can. And if you do, you stay there presumably to the end of your career, right? You're not expecting your pay to go down over the years. You could either go up or it could stay. Whatever the prediction is, that's going to happen. That difference between what you would have made if you not got the degree and what you could have made right up here, that's going to occur every year for the rest of your life or the rest of your career. Right? So that's the benefit. If it means that you jump from a job that pays $50,000 a year to a job that pays $100,000 a year, and say you're 30 years old, you're going to be working for, let's pretend, another 30 years. So that premium is $50,000 a year multiplied by 30 years. That's the payoff. Okay? I mean, obviously, this is very, very simplified and idealized. I'm not taking into account the time value of money or anything else, but that's the idea. You're going to calculate this, and you're going to say, okay, so it's going to give me this benefit. Therefore, does it make sense to pay this cost? Right? So here we go. Now we're into an area of great uncertainty. You have to make predictions, right? Will I be able to get that type of job with it? Or will I not? Now, there are ways of finding that out, or at least getting very good data, what you can expect, right? And to get really good data, it does involve going to great lengths. You have to go and talk to people, right? Find out people that have done this exact thing and go talk to them, right? You can find these people on LinkedIn. You do a search for people that have, got certain qualifications. A standard sort of thing to do if you want to see if a degree or any kind of educational credential is worth it or what it's worth is do a search for it on LinkedIn and then do a people search. So this university, this MBA program, okay? Do a search for that. Now, in a people search, the results are going to be people. They're going to be individuals. These are going to be people's profiles. And that educational qualification is somewhere on their profile. So either they're in school for it right now, or they completed it in the past, right? So if they completed it in the past, look at what job they have now and what job they've had since they got that degree. Okay. Now, if everybody who's got this certain credential, this degree that you're interested in, if they're all pumping gas and flipping burgers, that tells you one thing. On the other hand, if they're all CEOs and, high-level consultants that are getting paid like, an astronomical amount of money, that tells you something else, right? As to the value of that particular degree. Okay, so these are things you can look up. You can look up today. If you get no results, you're looking for this degree, and on LinkedIn you do a people search and nobody shows up. That means it's not really out there. Not many people have taken it, or they're certainly not disclosing they've taken it, which is usually not a good thing. On the other hand, if you search for it and it's everywhere in every industry, people from every industry at every level, you got people at the high level, you got people at the middle, they all have it. That tends to suggest it's more of a thing. It's more tried and true, So these are some of the things you can do, and in like 5 minutes you can find out some of the stuff, about it. And then if you want, you can go another step, and now that you've found these people, you could reach out to them and say, hey, could I have a quick phone call with you? I'm interested in taking that educational credential that you have, and I was just wanting to get your opinion on it, on what the experience was, and how you found it in hindsight, now that it's been a few years since you had it, since you've gone through it. I'm wondering if you'd be able to open to share your thoughts on that with me. Some people won't respond, but some people will, and you could talk to them about it. So these are some of the things you could do. Todd Booth says, you're pointing out that the hard part is good data for your strategy. That's what's worth money, coincidentally. Well, no, I'm not. I'm saying that you can get this information. It's really not that hard. It involves a little bit of work, but it's really negligible in the grand scheme of things. You can find out, but you have to go about it in a smart way. A lot of people skip this step. They base their decisions based on opinions and feelings and maybe advice somebody gave them. It's really not far from a sure thing. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is that you can get a lot of data that validates some of these decisions, and but you have to seek it out. You have to seek out the individuals that have done it, and you have to start talking to them. And it's not that you take any one person's advice, it's that you're looking at trends. So if you talk to 8 people that have all gone through the degree that you're considering taking, like you're about to pull the trigger on this, but you're really not 100% sure whether it's worth it. And you sit down with 8 people that have all done it. Somebody's just done it, somebody's done it 2 years ago, somebody's done it 5 years ago, etc. And they're in different industries, but they're all in your hometown, right? You'll probably start to notice some trends. Either they all didn't like doing it, they felt it was very challenging, but they're glad they did it. Or they say, well, I'm glad I did it, but I didn't get hired based purely on the fact I had that degree. It complemented what I already had, So if you have this kind of combination, then I would say it's a good thing. It can open doors like it did for me, but it's not because of the degree per se. So whatever they say, you're looking for trends, right? And that's how you can get some real world feedback on this stuff from a good source. It's not a party with a conflict of interest. They're not trying to sell you something. They're not paid to try and influence you. You're getting honest opinions from people. And the advantage of talking to people that have done this in the past, if they've done it like more than 5 years ago, is that, there's really no vested interest. Usually, like in most cases, there's no vested interest in them trying to influence you. They'll say like, well, I found it interesting. I don't think it was like super useful to my career, necessarily. Or they'll say, the school was okay. I learned the stuff in class, But the real value was going there and being in class with other people that, they were in all kinds of positions in our hometown. And that, by getting to know these people became my friends. That really helped because, they worked for companies and, they could put in a good word. They could let me know when a certain place was hiring and they can put in a good word for me. And that's really what led to it being something that helped me. It wasn't because of the recognition of the degree. It was because it gave me access to that personal network or something, so you could get that information from people, or you could ask them directly about it and say, was it the learning in class, or was it, more of the, being in that environment and, being with those people and the networks that you had access to? Is that what did it? And incidentally, that's another part of the MBA discussion. Where does the value come from? Does it come from learning the material, or does it come primarily from, now rubbing shoulders with people that, can give you all kinds of opportunities, right? That's another topic. Let me know what you guys are interested in. I'm just sort of trying to guess. This is a big topic. Let me know in the chat. If you've been a subscriber to my channel for any amount of time, you should be able to get in the chat. Let me know. Just as a reminder, because I'm not really getting a lot of questions, just as a reminder, I do have MBA course, best bang for the buck anywhere, by the way, $100, not $100,000, $100. And for that, you get access to all the information, all the knowledge that you would learn in a brick and mortar MBA program. And how does that work? How can that be true? It's because you essentially get a reading list, and you're reading the same textbooks that they cover, that they study in these MBA programs, some of the top MBA programs in the world. So, for example, in my course, you're reading a couple of books that they use in Harvard Business School in their MBA program. And all the books that, are selected in that, they're some of the top books that are used in top programs, in MBA programs around the world. I've read all these books myself, and what I do is I provide videos that guide you through it, okay? And I made this available because I noticed a need with people who want to be entrepreneurs. They would love to have access to this knowledge because this is the knowledge that helps them succeed, right? But they don't want to go to business school for a couple of years and full time and pay for it and do all that kind of stuff. Neither do they need to impress anyone with a degree. Like, the whole point of working for yourself is that you don't have to answer to anybody. You're not approved by anyone. So, you sink or swim based on your own abilities. So they're not interested in going to business school, but yet, ironically, they are sleeping and breathing the material more than, almost anybody else in any other job, So I made this available. I've mentored a lot of startup founders, and I've consulted on a lot of small businesses and things like this. And so I wanted to make that available for people that are looking for that. So anyway, if that's you, check that out. There's a link in the description box below to my course called the $100 MBA. So check that out. I've also made a video that describes the course, and it's like an FAQ. So it explains what you get and how it works and all that kind of stuff. So it's as transparent as possible. So check that out if that's the kind of solution you're looking for. Okay. Yeah, there are, well, it's weird. One says there's 23 people, another one says there's 10. So I'm not sure how many people are here, but get in the chat if there's some questions you have or some aspect that you're wanting to explore or discuss. We can certainly get into it. Yeah, like I've been an advocate of people working for themselves. I think that there are certain things that it is actually really good to have some experience. The first half of my corporate career was in large business, a large enterprise, working for multinational corporations and this kind of thing. And you do learn a lot doing that. But the second half of my career was working in smaller businesses. And it was a very eye-opening experience, just how good it was, how useful it was. And you see more of business when you do that. And I mean, I've been a serial entrepreneur also, and I've done that over the years. And that's a whole other experience in itself. It's an incredibly amazing experience. It really sharpens your skills, and it makes you very valuable, doing entrepreneurship, because you see all the different functions. You see like operations, you have to create something of value. You see marketing and sales, you have to be able to convince other people that this is a solution for them, and get feedback on like, what are they struggling with, and what are their needs, what are their wants, and then incorporating that into something that solves those, right? So lots of real world skills. You have to manage your finances, do your accounting, learn about taxes, all that kind of stuff. It forces you to do like every function yourself. An incredible experience, really eye-opening. So when you go work in a corporate career and you go work for employers, for organizations, especially in the for-profit, like private sector, you really understand like what they're doing now. You didn't before, but now you do. You understand what motivates them and why they do things a certain way. Incredible experience. So I'm an advocate for people like doing it themselves, You're welcome, Todd. Hopefully that was useful. Even the medium over which we're talking right now, YouTube, like YouTubers, if you're a YouTuber, you're an entrepreneur. You're someone that creates something, in this case, your videos or whatever. It has to fulfill some kind of want or need, amongst a certain customer base, like a target market, and you're on top of both of those, essentially the operations where you create videos or whatever, and then the marketing side where you're tailoring it to a customer and you're targeting them and all this kind of thing, right? And YouTube itself takes care of, finding the market for you, so you don't have to do that. But it's like it's a business in microcosm, So even like YouTubers, you're doing every aspect of business. You're doing your own accounting. You're dealing with taxes and all that kind of stuff. You're dealing with finances, like making decisions. Should I don't know, buy a fancier camera or something? If you're me, the answer is always no. This kind of thing. But you're paying attention to what your audience wants. And you're doing every function yourself. Some people, they employ other people, and they have like their own team of people, in which case you're doing, managing of people and, HR stuff and all that kind of thing. So you're doing everything yourself. It's like you're being schooled in this stuff, and you will have so much more of an understanding, a deep understanding of how it all fits together than a lot of people that have worked in corporate careers that have been a small cog in a large machine their whole life. You have more understanding than they do of business and the fundamentals and what really matters, So I encourage entrepreneurship either for its own sake or as a path to a corporate career. It really teaches you, each of the areas and how they fit. Getting business schooling like an MBA is a part of that, Just to reiterate, I believe it's good knowledge for everybody. Just learning how to make money is beneficial to everyone. The question that's open is like, what path should you take to get that knowledge? Should you go back to school? Should you go to a top tier like Ivy League university or something? Can you even get in? If you can get in, should you do that? It costs like 6 figures, Or should you go to the local community college? Or should you take a course like mine? Or should you do it for free? Just learning with ChatGPT or something. Or Coursera. There's other like really cheap alternatives. The jury's out on that one. It depends what your needs are. It depends what your plan is. It depends what you're suited to. If people give me some feedback, we could get into specific examples, just so you know. And I'm all for that. I'd like to respond to people's questions rather than just talk at you, monologue. But what do you guys think? Are you considering getting an MBA? What kind of options are you considering? What's the situation you're in? What's your goal for wanting to do it? Is it to get a better job? Is it to work for yourself? Is it to manage your personal finances and your life a little bit better? Is it to enable you to be in positions of responsibility? It's not about the money, it's about the role. You want to know how to manage a large organization of people. You want to know how to manage lots of big assets or installations or something like that, or make big decisions about things. People are motivated by different things. For example, one thing, probably the coolest thing that for me that I learned in an MBA program was organizational behavior. That's actually a topic, organizational behavior. It's a little bit of psychology, it's a little bit of sociology, it's a little bit of political science. What it is, it's the study of how people behave in organizations. We already know how they behave on an individual level. How do they behave in an organization? Because when you go to work, you see a lot of stupid, weird things that you can't explain. Right? People behave in weird ways. They say one thing, they do another. They say one thing, they do another, but they think a third thing. A lot of weirdness. And when we're young and when we're ignorant, we just say, they're just all stupid. Everyone but me is stupid. That's the only logical reason for this, right? And then when you get a bit older, a bit wiser, you realize, no, there's actually something going on here. There's strange psychological factors, sociological factors, political factors, right? And all of that is brought together in this study of organizational theory. So some people call it organizational theory, some people call it organizational behavior. For example, the example I always give for this, and you may have seen this, is where there's a boss and an employee, and you're one of the employees, okay? But maybe one of your coworkers, right, who also reports to the boss, you've observed that they have more power than the boss. The boss can't fire them. They're openly insubordinate to the boss. They're disrespectful of the boss. Maybe if you did that, you'd be out the door very quick. They wouldn't tolerate that. The boss would fire you and that would be that. But for some reason, this coworker of yours, the boss just takes it. They can dictate to the boss what's going to happen and what they're going to do. And the boss just sort of goes along with it. What's going on there? What you're basically looking at is you're seeing how, the organizational chart of the company, like the hierarchy of authority, is not representative of the actual power of the people inside it, right? So even though this person technically reports to that other person, it's not the person that's higher up that actually calls the shots, right? So organizational behavior explains that. They say, this is what's going on. This is what leads to that. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. Oh, and here's the solution to it. And here's how you can get that for yourself, or here's how you can deal with it in others. Here you go. So it's really interesting from that perspective. It answers a lot of questions like, for a manager, how can I have a committee set up to study a problem and give me an answer to it, find out what the cause of some problem was, and say what the solution is? Now, how can I set that up, appear to be completely have nothing to do with it, have it be completely impartial, but yet I can control the output, the outcome of that committee? Here's the committee's findings. How can I control it without being on it, right? How can I be seen as the person behind decisions when it's to my advantage, but yet not take any of the blame or be blamed when anything goes wrong, when it's not to my advantage. Now, I'm not saying this is a tool to help you be unscrupulous. What I'm saying is that you might have noticed that behavior, right? And by understanding what forces are actually going on and what motivations people have behind the scenes and how everything really plays out, knowing that, you can control it, you can understand it, you can navigate it, You can recognize when other people are pulling some shenanigans with this stuff. It's a fascinating topic. So anyway, this is one of the things that you study in an MBA program. It's called organizational behavior. And, it's required, I think, for people that want to be managers. So that's why they like it when managers have MBAs and things. You know, stuff like this. All those stupid games of power politics people play and stuff like that. It helps you understand how all that stuff works. Knowledge is good. So hopefully so you can avoid it and not do that kind of thing. Or if someone's doing it to you, you know exactly how to counter it, Very useful stuff. So anyway, in the absence of any questions, I guess I'm going to wind this down soon. I'll give everyone the opportunity. If you have any questions about, the topic today, which is, the MBA, Masters of Business Administration, is it worth it? Like the title says, is the MBA dead, or is it the best investment you'll ever make? If you're thinking of getting an MBA or anything like that, if you have any questions about that, now is your big chance. Get in the live chat and let me know, and I will do my best to help you out or to answer them, or at least give you my take as someone who has an MBA, and I've had many jobs, including CEO of a smaller company. I can tell you how it fits in, or at least how it has certainly fitted into my career. We can do that. In the meantime, just to fill some air, I'm going to once again remind everyone, check out that course if you are interested in learning the material, but you don't really care about going back to a fancy school or anything like that, but you want to do it on your schedule and totally at your convenience. Check that out. I created that course for you, and it's been popular for people, as I said earlier, that want to be entrepreneurs. They want to work for themselves and be successful in business, so this gives you the knowledge. Also, it's also been popular for people that are like students. They're going to take a full-blown MBA program in university or whatever, and they want to put their toe in the water first and just see what they're getting into, maybe give them a little bit of a head start. Those type of people, many of those type of people have taken that course too. So if that's you, something to check out. The MBA, the $100 MBA course, there's a link in the description to it, and also to a video I did that describes it in great detail, so you can see exactly how it works and what you get before you pull the trigger. So check that out. Links in the description box below this live stream. Okay, great. So we got something from Todd Boothby here. So organizational behavior seemed the least relevant for my goals, but now you show it might be the most relevant and interesting. It has as the strategies, tactics, and drama for my literature. That's the thing. I don't know if you can get an MBA that specializes in that area. I've never heard of it. Maybe you can. It's always like, the specialties are the other areas like accounting, marketing, entrepreneurship, finance, stuff like that. My MBA was specializing in finance. But maybe you can even specialize in it. It is really cool. Like I was not expecting much from that course. I remember years ago, I didn't know what it was. It's like, what is this thing I got to take? And it just seemed like a bunch of psychobabble and what is this? But it actually was super, super cool. You study things like power. What are the sources? How do you actually get power? It derives from this and this. Therefore, here's the forms it can take. Therefore, you might have observed different things with it. So when you understand what it is, like any other knowledge, it allows you to reverse engineer it. It allows you to play with it. If you see it being abused, you kind of know what the fix is. You know what maybe led to that. it's good because if you're in charge of things and you set everything up, you don't want your employees finding loopholes to gain personal advantage for themselves at the expense of the collective, right? Like the organization. That's not why you're setting things up. You're setting things up so that, everyone does their job and everything works out, So that's why it's kind of required knowledge. You can never really get away from this kind of stuff, whether it's power politics or, you're trying to, like if you're trying to influence people in your own organization, let's say you're a boss and you have a team of 25 people that report to you, either directly or indirectly, right? You're wanting them to all pull together. You're wanting them to understand certain things. You're wanting them to want to be able to come and talk to you if they need to, like various things like that. But in practice, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, obviously, with this stuff. So understanding how all that stuff works and how communication works and different incentives and incentive structures, very, very useful in the real world, So that's where you learn that in the MBA program. It's usually in that area, organizational behavior. So yeah, I found I was, as you can probably tell by my enthusiasm in talking about it, I found it so much more interesting than I thought it would be. And, it was really a surprise, I didn't even know you studied that stuff, but they did. And it's really cool. And now I see it everywhere. Let's see here. So that was Todd Boothby. So that's the great point there, Todd. How do you say this? Okay, here we go. Okay, Ik.20 Amausch says, I want to do the self-study program. Okay, well, you have many options. I have an option right there. You could check that out. But there are many options for self-study. I mean, there's so many places online that will teach you like business stuff, I'm not going to go into a laundry list of names, but you can find it pretty easy, right? But obviously, I would encourage people to check out my offering. That's an obvious thing. But yeah, the thing is if you do it kind of organically on your own, so you're not getting an accredited degree or something that's recognized, but you're learning the knowledge, okay? It's still useful. It's still quite useful. It allows you to do most regular jobs, to do them even better, because you're tuned in to how your employer thinks, what they care about, what they don't care about, things like this, right? And often that stuff differs quite a bit from what people would guess to be their thoughts and motivations and perspectives, So it can help with that. It can not only help you to learn to make money directly, like going into business for yourself, either doing it as a side hustle and then, or later on as a full-time business. So you can get that capability. It'll really help you with that. Also, it'll help enhance whatever career you already have going. But it won't be this magic thing where, you say, I've got this degree. Now, in some industries, that will open doors for you. They see you've got that degree. They go, okay, so you're management material, It's recognized. Like in financial services and banking, I know that's definitely the case. If you have an MBA, it opens all kinds of doors, then you can go up, right? But if you don't, then they keep you down. There's like a ceiling there. But in other industries, they don't really care about that. It does vary. I started out my career in the railroad. The railroad, they couldn't care about this. They couldn't care about education less. They had this belief that any person could do any job. And so they ended up with vice presidents of the company that essentially didn't even have high school, and when I was there, I saw that company go bankrupt. But they had been around for like 100 years, so I mean, it takes all kinds. We see all of this. GDSPE says, I am an MBA. Okay. Usually you would say I have an MBA, but okay, you are an MBA. I think it's difficult. It's a difficult degree or knowledge of market. Most job posts in the past have offered the MBA as nice to have or sweetener. Yeah. I think MBA's transition from professional manager to more independent roles and entrepreneurship. Okay. Well, maybe. Like, if that's been your observations and your experience, who am I to challenge that? I would say that that's certainly not universal, but yeah, that we do see that, right? And the thing is, there's a lot of people that, like, when they post jobs, they don't understand what an MBA is. So, they'll say, oh, well, I guess having one would be good for this job, but they're making those determinations without really knowing what it is. There's a lot of people doing that. Just like there's a lot of people having this debate, whether it's good or not, when they themselves don't have an MBA, so they don't really know what they're talking about, so there's different perspectives on that, but I can see that being a thing. I kind of agree that, like, okay, it's never been easier to be an entrepreneur than it is now, just because of some of the resources we have available, like YouTube, for example, that I'm talking to you over. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'd say that. I mean, there's always been entrepreneurs and there's always been, traditional large business, right? That mix is not really changing. It's just that it is getting easier to be an entrepreneur on, like, the small scale. Definitely. Are there any books on it? Yeah, of course, there's many books on it. What I would listen, each to their own, and you can do whatever you want. What I would recommend and what I have done would do, like, that's what this course is like, if you're going to read about it, why not read the material itself? Instead of reading somebody's opinion on whether it's good or bad, you could spend that time reading the actual material, like the doing the learning itself. Each topic, each subject in an MBA is a course, and they usually consist of about approximately 12 courses, maybe some more, a little bit more in some programs, a little bit less in some others. And each of these is like one of the key areas of business. So accounting, finance, marketing, economics, operations, various things in operations, organizational theory, and then there's like entrepreneurship, and then there's all kinds of other electives and things like project management, change management, stuff like that. So like general management is probably the first course you take. So instead of just reading a book on somebody's opinion about this stuff, I would suggest you read the first essentially textbook on management, on how management works and what it is and how you do it, and decide maybe from there if you want to go deeper. Like, what you can do is, if you live in a city or in a region somewhere near there's a university, you have like a hometown university or something, go to the website of the university, go look at their MBA program, and then see if they have the individual courses posted in their MBA program. And sometimes you can see, you can navigate into like the individual courses, and you can see their textbook. You can see what book they're reading, right? We're studying this stuff out of a book. That's how the vast majority of schools do it. Even the Ivy League schools in the States, they do it that way. Obviously, they're enhancing it with, having some brilliant professors and stuff. But this material is really not that, there's no magic to it. It's just basic material that they've studied for the last few hundred years. So you can order that same book off Amazon. You can get a slightly older edition, maybe 5 years old, 10 years old, for like literally $5, in a lot of cases. And just get that and read that. Like that's a great option for a lot of people. And then, not only are you learning, but you can see kind of what it's about. And then if you want to go deeper, you can. Are there any books on organizational behavior? Oh yeah, there's tons. And starting with like the textbook. So for example, if you get my course, I recommend one book on organizational behavior, right? Like I give you a reading list. Read these books, and that's the MBA. Like if you were in school, each one of those books would be a course, and you have to read that textbook, as part of that course. And then you learn all the concepts out of it, right? So, there's a book that I recommend that's part of that course. I'm not going to tell you what it is, it's in the course, but there's many, and you can do searches online and you can find it. Like I said a moment ago, go to your local university, go to their MBA program, look in the MBA program, do they have a course on organizational behavior, and see what their textbook is, and see if you can find that book on Amazon or a slightly older edition on Amazon. There you go. And you're essentially taking that course. You're getting the same benefit as that course. Now, the advantage of doing this on your own is that you could either just skim it if that's all you're really wanting to do. You don't need to know every little detail, Or if you're really interested, you could go in depth. You could go in depth the way they're going in depth. A lot of the textbooks have, practice problems. You can also buy the solutions manual and, do the problems and see if you got it right. So like you could really learn it through and through. Or you could just skim it. The beauty of programs like mine, or if you're just doing this kind of on your own, is, maybe you're not interested in every area of business. You care about marketing, but you don't care about accounting. It's like, I get it. I'm not interested in learning that, but I am interested in learning like marketing and sales. So you get the marketing textbook, you take that. If they have an additional sales course, you get whatever book for that. Organizational behavior is a psychology topic applied to management. Well, no, it's actually sociology. It's not psychology. But potato. Hi, sir. I realize this question may be slightly off focus, but I'm curious. How can one handle a situation where a manager deliberately provides a poor interview review to prevent staff movement? One handle a situation like when you say handle it, there are many options there, right? You can. There's different. Like let's start with some of the options here. First of all, you can go and talk to your manager and say, is this what's going on? And if so, why? Right? If your manager is receptive to you, there's certain things you can do. At the end of the day, if the boss doesn't want to do something, it's quite hard to change that if you're subordinate, Now you have options including leaving and going somewhere else where they'll treat you properly and they won't do this kind of crap, which for a lot of people will be probably what they jump to if it's a severe enough issue, right? Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're trying to handle it in terms of personal communication, and sort of say what's going on, because what is probably going on, this is a question of organizational theory. To understand why they might be doing it, we're going to organizational behavior, right? You see how often this stuff comes up, and what to do about it is based on what's causing it, right? So it's usually political when you have this stuff, right? I mean, without knowing what the cause is, it's very hard to pin down, right? It could be favoritism. It could be biases. It could be some political thing. It could be like they're pressured in a certain way coming down from their bosses, and they're doing this just to survive and keep their job. Like they need to show the perception of something or get certain results. You know what I mean? So you never really know. There could be a variety of things, but But those are the range of actions that could be an option depending on what your situation is and what the cause is. Sorry, that was kind of a glorious non-answer, but it's a very general question. It could be a variety of causes, and different people will have different options available that they would consider. Usually this stuff doesn't work. Like I don't know. I mean, it varies, but usually stuff like this, like treating people like crap, is usually, in the long term, it doesn't produce great results. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. But that varies by industry. If you work in an industry where every year you have 100% employee turnover, of like the workers, because some industries are like that. You work in a chicken rendering plant, where they kill the chickens and turn them into chicken meat, you get that. You get like 100% worker turnover in 12 months, investing in people and caring about what they think and how happy they are. I can accept the argument that it just doesn't pay off, in certain ways, but I mean, within certain limits, Other industries where you're there for the long haul, people are highly paid, then it really doesn't make sense to like piss everybody off around you, or all your subordinates, You know what I'm saying? It really depends on the situation, but, generally speaking, that's not a winning strategy. If this is what a manager or a boss is doing across the board, I would suspect they don't know how to manage properly. They never went to school for it, or there's some weird political thing going on. Particularly in a setting where career progression feels restricted. Well, you see here, okay, if you're talking about career progression, like jobs beyond your current job, now you directly butt up against some incentives, right? Your boss, do they have an incentive to promote you, to help you in your career? Okay, beyond like a humanist thing, like they're a nice person, they're a decent human being, and they want to help you, just as a friend would help you. Beyond that, do they have an incentive to really help you in your career, help you get a better job, somewhere else? No, that actually is bad for them. If you leave, that creates disruption. They now have to start all over with a new person, someone that, they don't know, that they haven't invested in, they haven't put time into yet. It's like several steps back for them. So they have an incentive, all things being equal, to make you stay where you are and continue to perform well. If you're working out and you're a good worker and you guys get along, their incentive is to keep you where you are. Now, that might not work for you because you care about your career. You want to progress beyond just this job. You don't want to stay here for the next 25 years, making this money, doing this work, right? So that's where there's a difference of incentives, right? You want to progress and get promoted. That's really not something that will help them. So some people will handle this in an honorable way and they'll just accept it. Other people will actively try and sabotage you. If you get this better job that you're deserving of, that screws me up. Therefore, I'm the type of person that's going to sabotage you. I'm going to sabotage that job opportunity so you don't leave, so you stay here. You have no other options. And I'm going to keep doing that, right? Some people are like that. But it ultimately is created by their incentive structure, right? If you leave, it's bad for them, so they'll want to work against it. Where were we here? But that's not off topic. That's like, we're talking about organizational behavior today, and this is just yet another foray into that topic. That's something that can come up. Nice idea. Check out the course available in an MBA curriculum. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. You could do all that yourself, or I can basically do that for you for like $100. You take my course. That's what I did already for people, And I'm giving you additional stuff. For what it's worth, I'm giving you sort of my personal take on a lot of the topics, and I'm also giving you examples from my career where I've seen some of the stuff play out, and additional insight there. So you're getting all that together. Does it replace, having a professor teach it to you? Possibly. I'm not sure. It's gonna vary, but it's an option. I'm interested in how to get started. Sorry, I joined late today. Get started with what? I see you've just joined my channel as a member. Oh, well, thank you very much. So I want to start so you continue. I want to start the self-development MBA program. How to get the link to start immediately? If you're talking about my course, like this thing, it's in the description box under this live stream. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you see, the video, and then you see like a description box. Sometimes it might be hidden. It's hidden on mobile. If you're watching this on a phone or something, they kind of hide that box, but you can get it to appear. And I have links to all kinds of different things, including this course. So you could check that out. So that's where it is. In fact, since we've reached the end of questions, I have nothing to lose. You guys like my screen when it's clean? You like that? Here, I'm going to try and pull it up for you. Let's see here. And I'll share my screen here. I see it says how to pay and have access to the document. It's not a document, it's a course. So let's see here. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen here. So this is some ads playing. This is like the live stream that I'm broadcasting right now. But here is the description box, I believe, right? So there's a lot of stuff in here. There's a link to the course. Okay, so that's where it is. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I hope we shouldn't have to explain any further. That should be hopefully clear enough. But yeah, that's where that stuff is. So if you're contemplating this stuff, get as much real world data and feedback as you can. There are a lot of interested parties out there that will try and persuade you that, their particular educational program is the be all end all, and it'll be like worth more than gold to you, like they have a vested interest in convincing you of that because they want to make a sale, That's a definite shift that has happened in the last, 20, 30 years. Education has changed. The idea that, students are customers is really, taking root. It's causing a bit of a mind shift there. So, they're really actively seeking students in the same way that businesses seek customers. They'll promise the earth and the sky to get your money. Now, I'm not saying it's all cynical, but what I'm saying is that any claims that you do get, whether it's from any source, and I mean any source, go and corroborate that. Go and try and validate it by talking to people out in the real world that have taken that program and say, like, how was it? Did it help you? In hindsight, did it pay off for you? What aspects were good about it? What aspects were bad? Things like this. You can get that by using LinkedIn, like I said earlier in this stream. Go on LinkedIn, do a search for that educational credential, and do a people search. Now, you may need the premium version of LinkedIn for this, but that's okay if you do. Just get there. They always offer like a month for free. They're always trying to throw that at everyone to persuade you to buy it. So get the free month, cancel before the end of the month. You don't pay a thing. And do these searches, right? Find people that have taken this program. If you can't find anyone that's taken it in your hometown, that's maybe saying something. And observe before you even do anything. Just look at their profile, see like what industry they're in, where they are. They took this education, and where are they now? Are they like in a nice high position, making a lot of money, or are they like still down at the bottom, struggling? You can kind of see that. You can see their series of jobs they've had, So if you're looking something up and everyone's a CEO, that tells you something. If you're looking something up and everyone's all the results, they're all like pumping gas, that tells you something else. It's obviously not that much value, right? So that's the bottom line. Okay, so unless anyone has any last minute questions, that's pretty much where we're going to leave matters. We've explored this. Let me know if there's any other aspects of this or any other business questions that you're interested in exploring with me. If you'd like me to give you sort of my take on it or explain it. I do this live stream every week where we explore business topics. So let me know if there's anything you want me to cover. Other than that, I'm live Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I will be live again today in about half an hour. I have another live stream scheduled where we talk about job search. So like how to get jobs, resumes, interviews, that kind of thing. So I'll be back for that. Other than that, check out my other YouTube channels. I've got 2 other YouTube channels, The Company's Expert 2 and The Company's Expert 3. I'm trying to point to them here. It's kind of hard. For various things. And check out my courses. The ones that I think will be relevant to people here are the $100 MBA, which I've covered a couple of times, link in the description. I also have this one here, which is communication skills. So everything I learned about communication skills from going from a supervisor when I started to a CEO when I ended my corporate career, everything I learned along the way about communication skills, I put into that course. So if you're interested in learning that stuff, check out that course. It's called Write Like a Professional. And I will be back with another episode of Leadership Skills for Managers next week, same time. Take care of yourselves.